Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking something that is literally universally relevant, yet somehow completely misunderstood by so many of us. We're talking about the psychology of solitude. We're going to break down the exact science behind why some people absolutely thrive when they're totally by themselves. Let's get right into it.
Why can some people spend an entire day alone and feel completely fine, while others immediately feel the need to be around someone? It's a fascinating psychological mystery, right? Because look, we all know that one person who can just happily disappear into the woods for a solo weekend. But then, we also know folks who literally start pacing the room if the group chat goes quiet for more than an hour. So today, we're going to crack the code on how highly independent people relate to themselves and what every single one of us can learn from them.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. Alone versus being lonely. Understanding the core difference.
Before we go any further, we absolutely have to clear up this massive myth. There's a fundamental psychological line in the sand we need to draw here. Being alone, that is just a neutral physical state. It literally just means having nobody in your immediate vicinity. That's it. But being lonely, now that is a deeply emotional state of feeling disconnected or abandoned. Loving your solitude simply means you can physically be by yourself without triggering that emotional pain of loneliness. Just think about your typical Friday night. You could sit there, totally miserable, drowning in FOMO, or you could actively choose to stay in, grab some takeout, and put your phone on Do Not Disturb with absolutely zero guilt. The practical lesson here, consciously reframe your alone time as a deliberate, positive choice, not just some default state you're stuck in. The second it becomes your choice, it becomes incredibly empowering.
Moving right along, Section 2, Peace with Your Thoughts, the Inner Dialogue. So, what's actually happening inside the heads of people who love being alone? Well, it comes down to inner peace. And in this context, that means a psychological state where you're actually comfortable with self-reflection, rather than needing constant 24/7 external distraction. I mean, think about it. When you strip away the social interactions, the text messages, and all the background noise, what's left? You're just left with your own mind. Some people really thrive in that space because they're genuinely cool with their own thoughts. They don't feel that overwhelming, frantic urge to flick on the TV or doom scroll just to drown out their own inner voice.
And this brilliantly illustrates what it looks like in the real world. It's going for a walk, but get this, without a podcast in your ears. It's using that quiet, uninterrupted time to just mentally process the day's events. Sounds super simple, right? But honestly, in an age where we instinctively reach for our headphones the literal second we step outside, letting your mind wander in pure peace is basically a superpower.
So here's a rapid-fire, highly practical lesson you can literally apply today. Practice spending just 5 minutes a day in total silence. No phone, no music, no talking. Just sit and let your thoughts do their thing. Yeah, it might feel a little weird or uncomfortable at first if you aren't used to it, but this is exactly how you build up your tolerance and eventually your absolute comfort with your own internal narrative. All right, Section 3, free from social validation. Internal versus external worth.
This is where a massive psychological shift takes place. People who are highly comfortable being alone, they generate their self-worth from within. It is completely independent of the crowd's approval. Look, when you're constantly surrounded by people, it is so easy to rely on their reactions, their compliments, or their agreement just to feel good about yourself. But when you're alone, you don't have that external mirror. You literally have to be secure enough in your own values to know you're doing okay, even without an audience clapping for you.
It's really all about this mindset. I don't need a +1 to enjoy this Saturday morning cafe trip. Have you ever wanted to check out a new restaurant but you ended up staying home just because you couldn't find a friend to go with you? We've all been there. But people who are comfortable alone possess this quiet confidence. They can just sit and enjoy their coffee without stressing for a second that anyone thinks they look lonely.
So I want to challenge you with this practical lesson. Take yourself on a small solo date this week. Seriously, go grab a coffee, browse a bookstore, or wander through a museum totally by yourself. And hey, no texting the whole time either. Just exist in a public space completely on your own terms. It's an absolute game changer for building up your independent confidence.
Let's move to and see how this builds into Section 4, Pursuing Interests and Recharging, the solo battery.
The psychology of deep work and genuine skill building tells us something really important. Deep focus on personal goals literally requires uninterrupted, dedicated time. Because think about it, when you're always hanging out with other people, you're constantly compromising. You're watching the movie the group agreed on. You're doing the activity the group wanted to do. But solitude, that's the one space where you do not have to compromise at all. You can dive headfirst into your own hobbies, whether that's painting, coding, reading, whatever, entirely at your own pace.
Now, what's really interesting about this allocation of our social battery is how intentional it is. You might spend, say, 40% of your energy on work, 30% hanging out with friends, but crucially, you protect that remaining 30% for a solo recharge. People who thrive alone view their solitude as the literal charger for their psychological battery. They know that to be a great friend or to stay sharp at work, they have to plug themselves into the wall, and for them, that wall is quiet time alone.
In our everyday lives, this looks like spending 3 hours totally lost in a weekend DIY project, or reading a book on a Sunday without being interrupted once, or just actively recharging your energy for the upcoming work week. The practical takeaway here: open up your calendar and literally schedule dedicated recharge blocks. And you need to defend that time with the exact same ruthlessness you would use for a meeting with your boss.
Okay, on to our final segment, Section 5, Finding a Healthy Balance. Striking the perfect harmony.
Now, I want to be incredibly clear about this next point. Keeping things strictly evidence-based. People who love being alone are not somehow intellectually superior to social butterflies, okay? And highly social people aren't insecure. Both of these personality types are completely valid and incredibly healthy. The real difference just comes down to intention. Healthy solitude is an intentional choice that leads to contentment while you still maintain your outside connections. Unwanted isolation, on the other hand, is forced. It leads to sadness and it severs those social connections. So the crucial point is this: being comfortable alone simply means enjoying your own company while still maintaining meaningful relationships. It is absolutely not about becoming a hermit. It's just about knowing that you are perfectly fine on your own. And ironically, that actually makes the time you spend with others way richer because you're showing up out of genuine desire, not out of some desperate need to avoid being alone.
So, I want to leave you with this final provocative question. How will you spend your next hour of free time? Will you use it to connect with others, or is it time to reconnect with yourself? Take a second to really think about what your psychological battery needs today. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope these concepts have given you a fresh perspective on the beautiful art of solitude. Keep learning, keep reflecting, and I'll catch you next time.